Okay, guys. Part two, continuing on. I'm going to leave contact and I'm going to open up another powerful instrument called Helion 6 from Steinberg, who also makes Yamaha, and they also make Cubase and a lot of other cool stuff. And I just have a bass loaded, right? And bass is one of those things where a lot of times, hey, we can get by with MIDI bass. We don't have to use a real bass player. I love real bass players. Don't get me wrong. I'm a drummer. I love to have a good bass player. But sometimes I either need to get a bass part that's, a placeholder until I get a real bass player, or sometimes I get to the end of my recording. I'm like, there's so many tracks. It sounds great. We don't need to use a guy on this one. And one of the ways I can save myself a little money and get my bass sounding really good is using key switches. Okay, because again, if we had the same note over and over again, let's see, it doesn't sound very realistic, right? So if I have all kinds of different key switches, let's go down okay, let's listen to some of these. So this is a pick bass, so meaning the bass player is using a pick, and they have a up and a downstroke. So I don't know which is which, but you can have the key switches going back and forth when you're playing, so that it's going ding 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 instead of dun 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 dun. Just another way to affect the sound, right? And here's a muted tone. There's a few different muted tones on this. And here's kind of a cool, like, muted thing. Okay. Hopefully my piano keys aren't too loud. Here's a different sound. More of a hollow tone. And probably a real bass player could probably describe these a little bit better than myself. Here's like they call that like a hammer-on, where he kind of slides into it. And he's sliding down now. It's called a harmonic, where you don't actually press down the string. You kind of hold your finger over it, and I'm sure some of you are much better guitar players than I, and you create that harmonic sound. So here's like a upper octave harmonic, and then here's it switches, or I'm sorry, that's just the octave. So I can play the same note and switch the octave, right? So I'm gonna close my email so I don't keep getting emails. There we go. Okay, so there's some more slide-ons. So all of those different tools, like you might just be using this. Whatever, I can't think of a good part. It's too early in the morning. So I'm going back and forth on my key switches. Okay, and then you could use one of those going into the next section or whatever. So that's the bass. Gonna stop rambling. Okay, so here's a string one. The strings, there's so many things to make strings sound good, and having good sounding strings is very important, because nobody wants cheesy sounding strings, right? So I have this, it's a cello instrument loaded in, and we're just gonna create a little something here. So you can see the key switches they have active for this particular instrument are spiccato up and spiccato down. Spiccato is like a quick chop on the cello strings, okay? So if you were just go junk, 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 that would be just down. But this has the key switches, so it can actually sound like a cello player going forward and back, bump, 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 bump. So I programmed a little kind of Jason Bourne sounding little cello thing, and it doesn't have any key switches yet, okay? And I just want you to listen for a second, okay? Okay, so it sounds okay. It doesn't sound terrible, but it's not great. But you can kind of hear the samples kind of get in each other's way, right? And this does have round robins too, so it sounds pretty good. So every time I hit a note, it's going to be a little bit different every time. Maybe there's 3 or 4 round robins. A lot of times they say they have an odd number, so it doesn't repeat every 4 beats. It'll be like 3 or 5 round robins. So what I have, what I can do, I'm going to show you how to do this in practice. So I'm going to open up my MIDI editor, and I'm going to program, rather than playing it, because it's like, man, that's really hard to think about key switches and playing notes at the same time, right? So I was like, of course. So what I'm going to do is, and it tells me on my instrument, okay, down is A -1, up is B -1. So what I'm going to do is go down to my lower octaves. Here's my -1 octave. So A -1 is down and B -1 is up. And I'm just going to go back and forth. So now when I play my instrument, you'll see on there that the key switches are going to, you know, I'm just going to do a little copy paste. Okay, so now watch up here, and you can hear with your ears. Okay, sounds way better already, and we're just getting started. And I haven't done, that's all with the same velocity, but it just sounds a lot better because of having those key switches in there. So now what I can do is take the same thing and duplicate it, and this particular instrument, they have, notice it says spiccato A, they also have a B, so it's going to sound a little bit different, just slightly. It still sounds like a cello section, but this particular instrument gives me different sound options so that it's not exactly the same. And what I can do is, and I copied my MIDI, so it's the exact same MIDI part, and we'll try it this way first, where we use the same key switches, and I'm going to pan these to the right, and then I'm going to pan my other ones to the left. So now hear the difference. Oh my goodness. Way better. And then we can also experiment with, hey, what if these key switches were opposite? I'll just move those up for a second, and then move it down. So now I've got my B cellos doing the opposite key switches. So and then here's the way I had it before. I think I liked them better before when they were playing together. So I'll just use that one. Okay, and then you know, let's have a little fun. Let's add. So what I can do, rather than, I'm just going to duplicate it, and let's add some. And you're probably seeing a lot of new things with me using Cubase and using some instruments we haven't discussed before, but no, it's just what I have to use to show you. So let's see, and you can see these are all different string options I have, and this is a good string instrument, but it's not the best. There are definitely better ones out there, but I'm not a string guy, so I don't, most of my investment has been in drums and percussion because that's kind of my specialty. So, but this gets me by a lot of the time. So let's see, viola. Let's do a viola staccato, and then we'll duplicate again, and we will do a violin, viola, violin. Let's see, violin staccato, and then they have. We won't do the A and the B for the violins. I just want to give you an idea. So, all right. So then this, I'm just gonna zoom out a little bit. These ones we didn't do. All right. So now everything is. So we'll rename this the viola. This one the violins. Okay. And I can leave my key switches, but I just need to change my octave because it's not the right octave. It's kind of low. So what I can do is transpose it up. Okay. And then I'll just copy that over. And then instead of playing that, I think we'll just have it be really intense violin. So I'm going to delete this altogether for the violins. And we'll give up, what key are we in? Okay, we'll do that. And we're just going to copy this over. Okay. But I still have my key switches, right? And then maybe this one. Okay, and you'll see this is just doing a little bit of arranging too, right? Okay, so there you go. Doing a little bit of arranging, using key switches, and overall just making stuff sound better. And there you go. Hope that is helpful and interesting for y'all. Feel free to let me know if you have any questions.